And joining us is Chris McLaughlin, Emergency Management Coordinator here in Keller ISD. Welcome, Chris, and let's talk a little bit about what you're planning for us to open up our schools in 2020, 2021.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. So we started thinking about and planning for different scenarios that we may face in the fall as early as April. And thinking ahead, that allowed us to create frameworks throughout the summer that we used to model for what we would face in the fall. And those go from preparedness and prevention, mitigation and response. So preparedness overall is the planning impacts that we're doing right now, the things that we're working and bringing everybody together. Prevention is screening and trying to prevent the virus from even entering the school. So that's medical screening, that's temperature checks, the types of things that are going to prevent the virus from entering the school. Mitigation, so talking about face Coverings and physical distancing, those types of things to reduce the transmission from person to person,
right.
Sanitation and those types of things and cleaning. And then response, so how do we handle an incident if we have a reported case, transmission from person to person, how do we isolate, how do we contain, contact trace, and if we need to move a school from in-person to remote or back and forth in those scenarios. That's what we've been working on throughout the summer.
So you mentioned temperature checks. So are we expecting to check the temperature of every child before they walk into the building?
So some of those things will happen to the best of our ability. Obviously, we know that if we have large numbers of students that do return, that's going to be a difficult task because we have a lot of students in the district. So when we start talking about students entering the building, we're trying to avoid congregate settings. So if we're trying to do a temperature check on every student that walks in the building, if we have large numbers, we're going to create congregations in those lines as they're bottlenecking in the building. So we're working on training for recognition of symptoms and observations based on, having somebody monitoring students as they enter the building. And if anybody looks ill, if anybody appears to need those spot checks, and we'll do spot checks as needed. And if we are able to do more temperature checks or check everybody, we will do that. But those are going to be situational.
So how does recess work in this kind of a setting?
So recess will still happen. We still want students to have physical activity and as much social interaction and engagement as we can do, but we still have to maintain physical distancing and those kind of safety precautions as we can. And we've identified different resources that we can engage to allow for those types of physical activities to occur. So out on the playground, as much outside activity as we can possibly do, those are great because it gets them outside of indoor environments. And there are specialized games and things that can be played that are designed for social distancing. So we're looking at those kind of tools and putting them in teachers' hands and in campus administrators' hands so they can design something unique to their campus and their own campus environments.
But likely, more organized activities in recess as opposed to you're just going out to a playground and playing, because obviously 6-foot social distancing doesn't work when everybody just kind of goes all at once.
Correct.
Right.
It can't be entirely free for all in that scenario
Right.
because we do have to try to manage some of that and try to keep everybody safe.
Sure.
So it is going to be somewhat structured in that setting, but we're going to try to provide some things that allow that social engagement, that recess, that fun time on the playground for students so that they can maintain that.
Right. So another big congregant area is the cafeteria for lunches.
Yes.
So how are we thinking about managing lunches?
So that's again going to be kind of situational on the campus. It's going to depend on campus density, how many students actually return physically in person. It's going to depend on, is that campus, do we have a large enough cafeteria? Are we going to be able to take individual groups to spread them out enough in a cafeteria setting where we can allow that? If we can't do that and we can't have 6-foot distancing and manage those kind of things in individualized groups, then we may have lunches in classrooms. And that's going to be logistically different from campus to campus. So if a campus can manage delivery to the classroom, we might do that. If a campus may not be able to manage that on their own situation, then we could have a group of students in one class go do lunch pickup and return to their classroom. So it could look a little bit different campus to campus, just based on their own situation. But Sodexo, our provider for child nutrition services, has been a great partner in that, and they've been working through some of those things on each campus to provide those services.
So you talked a little bit about training to identify symptoms.
Yeah.
But probably the biggest thing we're going to rely on are our parents.
Yes.
That for them to pre-screen, I guess, before they bring kids to school. So how would that work?
So it's a whole community response here.
Right.
We have to have the engagement of parents and the participation of everybody to make this work effectively. And I think that that's pre-screening in advance is going to be very, very important. So those 3 questions that we ask about symptoms, about contacts, and about anybody ill in the home is going to be very important. So if they make that part of the routine, and we're doing that daily, it's a simple online form. You can complete it in less than 30 seconds. If we're completing that for every student, we have that information that gives a reminder for the parents every day to check those things and be aware of those things and cognizant of that. So we're preventing virus from entering the school.
Sure.
And in doing so, then we're able to track and trace that data as well.
Right.
So if we have concerns, then we can make decisions based on a school level.
And just really quickly, is that an anonymous screening?
It is.
Okay.
It is. So we don't track any personal identifiable data in that. So
Right.
we're tracking based on general statistics within the school or the grade level.
Got
So if somebody happens to answer a yes to one of those symptoms, so somebody reports a COVID case in the home or symptoms or a fever or something like that on that form, we are asking about the grade level and the activity within the school within the last 2 weeks so that we can identify where those cases may be occurring. So if we have a cluster within a 3rd grade, then we know in that 3rd grade in that school, that may be a place where we have circulation of virus, and we may want to move that 3rd grade remotely. But if we're not seeing that among a 4th grade or a 2nd grade and the rest of the school is not circulating, then we can keep other students safe and in person and keep those
Sure.
other 3rd graders safe and break that transmission cycle.
Oh, great. Well, it's a lot of things we're trying to figure out, and I appreciate your time and the effort that you and your team are working on to keep our kids and our staff healthy and safe. So, again, thanks for joining us, and have a great day.
Absolutely. Thank you.